evening. Let the record show that we called this regular public hearing on October the 10th, 2023 of the Leon County Board of County Commissioners to order at exactly 6 p.m. We'll start with item number 27. Madam Attorney, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, item number 27 requests the board to conduct the first and only public hearing to amend the Leon County Land Development Code requiring new residential subdivisions, including multifamily development, to provide street lights for school buses. Commissioner, you will, or for school bus stops, you will remember this policy that was adopted by the board recently, and we are recommending option 1, and we have no speakers on this item. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is there a motion for option 1? Moved by Commissioner Welch, second.
I second.
Second by the Vice Chair. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes without objection. Item number 28.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 28 is the first of 2 public hearings to consider adopting an ordinance amending the definitions and accessory uses section of Chapter 10 of Land Development Code related to accessory dwelling units. Again, this follows recent board direction. I have no speakers on this item, and we recommend option 1.
Thanks, staff, for their creativity on this, as this will help with what we call the affordable housing stuff. So, is there a motion for staff recommendation? Moved by Commissioner Meisner, second. Seconded by Commissioner Caban. All those in favor indicate by saying. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes. Thank you. We had, and I'm not sure if all the commissioners did, but there was some correspondence regarding the accessory dwelling units with some questions regarding the changes. And I appreciate staff giving us the chart where we were able to look at some of the requirements in the various counties, Alachua, Escambia, St. Lucie, what have you. But one of the correspondents asked about areas like the lake protection zoning and the residential preservation zoning areas where a lot of those residences have septic tanks and not a city sewer. I'm sorry. And one of the questions, which I didn't see in the resolution or in the new changes that were provided for us, the question was whether or not the accessory dwelling unit, Mr. County Administrator, would have to share the same septic tank as the primary residence if it's in an area that doesn't have sewage. And there was a concern raised in the correspondence about overcapacity with sewage and overcapacity with septic tanks. So I didn't see it in there. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I do see where in one of the counties, I think it was Alachua County on the chart, that there was a common usage of existing utilities, including septic tank and sewage, but I just wasn't clear.
Commissioner, it's a great point you bring up. To us, it doesn't matter as long as they have adequate facilities, whether that be a septic tank or connection to municipal sewer. We would not issue a permit for an ADU unless they could show that they did have the adequate capacity, either in a septic tank or, again, a connection to municipal sewer.
Okay, can I follow up?
Yes.
So if there is septic tank sewer, if there's a septic tank for sewer disposal, does it go beyond just showing that the primary residence has septic tank? Do we look at capacity and that type thing, environmental concerns?
That's all done through the state health department. So we work very closely with them. We share a floor with them over at the Renaissance building. Any permit for a residential structure or any sort of structure that would require a connection to a septic tank goes through their office, and they do review it for exactly that, yes.
And they would look at capacity and a lot of things that we probably can't even fathom right now. Okay.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not just You go on and build your accessory dwelling unit, boom, you got a primary house and that's it.
No.
It has to go through the permitting and what have you.
You're absolutely right.
Awesome, okay. Thank you. That was my only question,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Administrator, do you have any more public hearings?
That concludes your public hearings,
Do you
Commissioner.
have any more business to come before the commission?
I do not.
Citizens to be heard on non-agenda items? Do we have any citizens?
We do not.
Okay. Madam Attorney?
Nothing, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Administrator?
Nothing for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the corner of Bragg Drive and South Adams Street, a minister of our church, Reverend Edith Holiday Austin, was hit at that intersection last Sunday. Earlier, our last church conference year, Ms. Carolyn Daniels was killed at the exact same corner of Bragg Drive meeting Adams Street. Commissioners, I'm recognizing that that area is in the city's jurisdiction. A death of our church's administrator, a total loss of a vehicle of one of our church's ministers. I'm asking if we could please notify the city for those bushes to be cut down that you can see around the curve, that you don't have to pull out in the street to see if you can pull out in the street. Please, 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 what can we do for modifying the danger in a positive way? I'd like to ask our board's request for city intervention. Enough blood has been lost at that intersection. Along that line, Mr. Chairman, I thought that Mr. Stanley Sims brought up a great point. And he mentioned about trees and those which qualify for the city to remove. And if a tree threatens the health, safety, if it's dead, what other standards? I'd like to see us look at a similar standard whereby trees that are threatening to existing facilities, and we can look up there and see that they're good, and it's just a matter of time, that we look at a tree policy, not a canopy road, I'm not talking about that, but the tree policy of the city to come out and make a judgment on whether they can cut it down. And then we have tree removal services. Then we have I like to see us look at these intersections and cut back. And I don't know if we have so many feet from the intersection that you can see. And I'll just step up in Commissioner Walsh's district for a minute for Exhibit A. And I would say Bannerman Road at Meridian. You gotta really lean out there at that point of intersection. And I think that when you get to a Bannerman Road, and I'm speaking out of district, but it's one of the good examples that I think of, we really need to become very, very sincere in moving those hedges, shrubs back from the sight lines of drivers. And members, I would like to request with your endorsement that our staff will bring back an overview about footage that we can really clean up areas of the county where you can't see when you are at the stop sign.
Seconded by Commissioner O'Keefe. Any questions on the motion? The motion is that staff bring back an item looking at places in our county that we can cut back the brush to avoid accidents. and loss of sight when driving. Correct, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Administrator. Mr. Immediate Past Chair, you still have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, wanted to say with respect to what we discussed about Gene Cox Stadium and that item number 25 on the sports market feasibility study, that study, Vince, is not all consuming, but that we compartmentalize that fairground, that 147 acres, that we don't subsume or preempt the possibilities for a municipal conference center, public space for meetings and et cetera, and stuff like that. I think that we deserve to maximize what we can do other than play. Then in Memphis, I want to say that I understand that there are a number of incredible fields in Memphis in a public site that we might contemplate. And Mr. Chairman, as you know, I'd already volunteered that on behalf of this board to go to Memphis for us to go and see it and bring a report back. You know, there were 12 spies that went out to survey the land, and they brought reports back. And I don't mind spying and going up there to check on some things. Happy birthday to my mama on Saturday. And Mom, I love you, and thank you for bearing with me for a short period of time. And those things being said, Mr. Chairman, I thank the commissioners for your steadfast, your complete commitment to the interests of our community. And I want to say that to those family rattlers and Coach Simmons. We want to draw some homecoming blood. In fact, we don't mind blood, sweat, and tears off that other team that we're going to be playing for homecoming. So we wish everybody well. And if you ain't got your ticket, you might not be going to the game, inside the game. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Reverend Ernest Farrell served as the executive director of the Tallahassee Urban League for 48 years. And as we know, he partnered with the county and the city to rehab houses and just did a lot through the Urban League. Well, he's celebrating his 81st birthday this month. And even though he's retired from the Urban League, but I'd like a proclamation to be read at his celebration.
Motion made by the Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Minor. Madam Vice Chair, he also has requested to email sponsorship for his birthday and event in the amount of $500 for a table of 8. Would you like to add that to your?
I will add that to the motion, and that the county will be a sponsor for his 81st birthday with a table to the tune of $500.
The proceeds go to the Tallahassee Urban League?
I don't know where the proceeds go. I'm sorry.
I think the proceeds goes to pay for the action event.
Pay for the Civic Center. The birthday celebration is at the Civic Center, so it probably provides.
I'll second that.
Pays for the food.
All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the only other thing I want to do is just thank our county administrator and his staff. Month after month, the staff is here. They sit through our meetings. They provide information for us for our meetings, just very detailed information. Shington, and we have our personnel director that's always here. And they sit in the corner, you never see them, but they are here. And if we have questions about anything, they are always ready and willing to respond to our questions. our issues. And I just want to just give a shout out to them and to the best administrator on planet Earth, because he knows how to choose a good staff, and they work well with him. They make him look good, but they are good people in their own right. So I just want to thank them for all that they do, and I think the citizens of Leon County needs to know the quality and caliber of staff that we have that work here for the county, Mr. Chair. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think the county attorney can tell us if this is appropriate, but I stepped out of the chambers while the county commission was discussing agenda item 21, and so I'd like the record to reflect that I voted in the majority of that item.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Minor voted in majority on item number 21.
Had I been present during the discussion.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, this week, our planning department, the Tallahassee-Leon County Planning Department, hosted 5 design charrettes to collect input on North Monroe from citizens. Specifically, this dealt with the part of the corridor that goes from I-10 north. And they did 5 of these charrettes, and I just wanted to thank our staff for doing that. I attended most of them. They did a terrific job, and they got a lot of good feedback. So shout out to our planning department. I wanted to seek approval on adding a legislative priority to our legislative workshop for discussion when we have that workshop. We have a member appropriation request for $950,000 for the Florida African American Heritage Preservation Network. As you know, that was founded by Altemies Barnes and a group of people throughout the state of Florida to help preserve African American history. We have added that to our legislative priority agenda for the past 2 years, and I wanted to see if we could also add that for this coming year. The good news is that for this appropriation request of $950,000, they do have bipartisan sponsorship from Representative Franklin and Senator Danny Burgess. So since this is not on the agenda, I know this has to be a unanimous vote to have this added to the legislative priority list. So my motion would be to add that.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Pratt out of chambers.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I just had one more thing. Last night I went to the Solidarity gathering hosted by Temple Israel, and the terrorist attacks on Israel are horrific. The brutality that's taking place on the other side of the world may seem far away, but for members of our Jewish community, it's very close to home. So I just wanted to say to the members of our Jewish community that there's support for you in this community, and we're behind you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask for a proclamation recognizing the renaming of the Northeast Branch Library in honor of former Commissioner Host, which will be occurring next month, I think the week of Thanksgiving.
I'll second that. Any objection? Seeing none, short is passed 6-0. Commissioner Pratt out of chambers.
Thank you. I would also like to invite all of you to Bannerman Crossings for the Northtown Get Down on Friday night. I will be in the dunk tank supporting the Go Pink Sharon Ewing Walker Breast Cancer Center at TMH. So you could, raise a couple bucks and try to dunk me if there's any, latent animosity or anything. You can take it out like that, right? Hoping it's not too cold. So that's this Friday night at Bannerman Crossings. And wanted to say thank you to Girl Scout Troop 224, who I was able to go and speak with on Sunday afternoon and help them get their democracy badge, I think it is. So talking to them about what we do as elected officials and how we help serve the community. So shout out to Troop 224. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wells, will you make a proclamation make a motion for a proclamation recognizing veteran Dennis O. Baker, retired Navy, and veteran Henry Lowry Jr., retired Marines, to be presented at Operation Thank You Breakfast for me?
Yes, sir. It'd be my honor.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I have a couple of thank yous. I first would like to thank Florida Department of Transportation, specifically Secretary Gaynor. In July, our office met with the Secretary, and we worked with Mr. Ben Pingree, county staff, and we had some asks for FDOT to support some initiatives and projects in our district that currently were not funded. Just recently, the county administrator informed the board that Capitol Circle Southwest to Crawfordville Road, that segment had been awarded funding for $90 million to take it to the construction phase. And so I would just like to give FDOT and Secretary Gaynor and his team a big public thank you, as well as the CRTPA, Blueprint staff, and county staff as well. Additionally, last meeting, I voiced concerns with Pensacola Street in regards to some of the crime that we had been seeing there for quite some time. In response to that, the sheriff announced Project Alliance that he is doing to combat crime on Pensacola Street. So I would like to give him a public thank you as well. I also would like to give a shout out and thank you to City Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox for her being an ally and supporting this initiative. And she helped set up a meeting with some business owners that are in that area, as well as the sheriff, their staff, county staff. And I'm very appreciative and thankful for the reaction and proactive approach from the sheriff, county staff, and the whole entire business community in that area. So I'm really looking forward to seeing us have a hands-on approach with crime, and I'm seeing that a light shine on that area. Additionally, I do have some business to discuss. In our Blueprint meeting in August, I made a motion at the end of the meeting looking at potentially restructuring Blueprint. Commissioner Proctor, in that meeting, you seconded the motion along with City Commissioner Jack Porter. I believe we ran out of time, so I withdrew my motion. Last meeting, Commissioner O'Keefe, you brought up some points of Blueprint, and I think I understood kind of where you're going with it. Though I may have disagreed with kind of how you said it, I think I knew where you were trying to go with that. So with that being said, I think there's some sentiment amongst this board and the county to see if the current Blueprint structure still is working in the best favor of Leon County residents and this board. So I kind of wanted to open up the floor for discussion. I had some conversations with the county administrator and shared kind of my thoughts. And kind of what I'm thinking is to make a motion to see if we can bring back an agenda item for the county to come back in a later meeting, maybe December, to see if the current structure and the kind of the building blocks of the IA agreement and Blueprint are still working in the best interests of our community. A couple of examples with that is I really didn't like, it didn't sit well with me, how when discussing the airport gateway, there's no definition of substantial change. It's very ambiguous. So we need a simple majority to increase the funding by $40 million, yet we need a super majority to scale back the project and essentially the scope of the project. Commissioner Minor, I fear that with your project, North Monroe Gateway, that I share the same interest as you as far as expanding the scope of that. People in my district use that gateway. Commissioner Proctor, people in your district use that gateway. And so I would like to see some projects, us to have the flexibility to be able to make decisions that we think is best for our districts. So also there's some staffing concerns. I think we have a great staff. It has nothing to do with the personnel, but the structure at which that they follow. In our meetings, we report the county attorney and county administrator report directly to this board. We can give them board direction. Blueprint, we cannot really do that, right? And the IA agreement clearly lays that out. I think we have a great county. The way that this board runs is collegial, it's professional, and it's efficient. And I think people realize that and they see that. Blueprint is different. And I think we should be asking, why is Blueprint different? And so what I'd like to do, if it's the board's will, I would like to make a motion to have an agenda item come back in December to direct the county attorney to look through the IA agreement and with no board direction, to come back and give all county commissioners some time to review the IA agreement, to make sure that the current structure of Blueprint is in the path that it's continued ahead, still serves the best interest of this board.
there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Proctor. Any other comment? Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just want some clarification. I believe Commissioner Caban, you said an agenda item to come back, but allow the county attorney to look at the blueprint structure?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So county agenda item, to come back, we are a 50% stake in Blueprint. So in the IA agreement, we are a 50% stakeholder. And so the county can make recommendations to the city and to Blueprint to propose changes to the IA agreement. So really I just kind of want to open-ended, give other county commissioners some time to review the IA agreement. And if there are any proposed changes, we have a set agenda item with time to come back and look and discuss it. And maybe maybe there is no change, but I think there's some sentiment among the board. I'm assuming, based on what I've seen in Blueprint meetings, that there is some sentiment to potentially have some changes.
So you mean just look at the structure
Yes,
of
ma'am.
blueprint?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
So would that really just be relegated to the county attorney, or? I just want some clarification on that.
So as I believe, is that the county attorney
Would direct it, perhaps?
the county, we have an interlocal agreement with the city that creates Blueprint.
Right.
And so the county has a sign, the city has a sign. So what we're asking for is the county attorney to go back and look at all of the things involved there to bring back to us, so then we can have discussion points on some things that we might want to change. And then we would have to send it over to the city. The city would have to review that, make the same agreement. And then there would be some signing and some agreements. And I believe it would probably be a vote at Blueprint as well for us to actually get to the end point there. But I think where Commissioner Caban is going is to start the conversation over here where
Right.
we would have our county attorney bring back a review of all of the things, the structures and agreements that are there for us to review and have a discussion
To
over.
see what power we have.
Yes. Yes. Yes, right?
Yes, I understand
Right.
the direction the board might want to go in, if that's what the,
Anything else?
I just wanted to make sure that that was the
Right.
proper procedure to get at what Commissioner Caban wanted, which is get us in a posture so that we can intelligently discuss
Right.
where we are and where we want to be. So I'm satisfied.
Any other comment? Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a number of reasons, I dug into the history of this interlocal agreement, and in part of our orientation materials for Blueprint, there's about 1,000 pages of the history of the interlocal agreements and the modifications after modifications after modifications after modifications after modifications. And so I'll just suggest that ideally, to prevent having an 8-hour meeting about anything touching Blueprint, perhaps we specify if the organizational structure or organizational authority of IMC and staff is what we're interested in, perhaps we can specify that that's the information and our rights and the parts of the agreement that on the county side we're interested in, so that we narrow the scope if that's what we're interested in. It's what I'm interested in, but it's just the idea is to try to bring it to where we're really looking, because it's a lot of history and a lot of documents.
So, Madam Attorney, if we have an agenda item come back in December, does that give rough 2 months enough time for your team to potentially look through documents?
I think what he's saying is, I mean, if you went through every single part of that document, it would likely be sometime next year the county attorney could bring it back and it be adequately looked over, as it is a whole structure in business there that she would have to go through. Now, what Commissioner O'Keefe is saying in particular is that if there's specific, like you mentioned specific things, you mentioned the structure with IMC and leadership, you mentioned the substantial amendment and supermajority, you mentioned, there was specific things that you mentioned there that if you were specifically just interested in those things, then that could possibly come back a little sooner than that. Madam Attorney?
so, when you're talking about scope, that will dictate just the sheer number and types of things and issues that will have to be reviewed. For example, if you're talking about a potential dissolution or split of Blueprint. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just talking about that as an example, simply because then you go back and look at what, there were referendums that were voted on. There were ordinances passed. There's financing. Where does that funding go? You have to look at bond documents and bond covenants, because we have Blueprint has bonds outstanding. So that is a different question than potentially asking for a review of the interlocal agreements. Understand the place interlocal agreement, the Blueprint interlocal agreement, the OEV interlocal agreement, and the planning interlocal agreement all link and interrelate to each other. So you're not just talking about looking at one interlocal agreement that's been revised over time. You're looking at how the interplay of that entire structure when you're asking to look at some of the things that have come up in this meeting. It can be as broad or as narrow as the body wants, but just understand the scope of what we'll have to review will be dictated by the parameters you set in this meeting, if that's what you want me to do. Now, if you're talking about definitions of policies or documents that are Blueprint documents, I will defer to Susan Dawson, who is the Blueprint attorney for those, because that then is a Blueprint issue, not a county interlocal agreement issue.
So, the administrator wants to speak, but if you'll allow me, I'm not interested in having that conversation here at all. I think if we're going to have that conversation, we have the conversation at Blueprint where everybody's sitting at the table. So it's not piecemeal together where we look at our interlocal agreement and then we send it over to them. If we're going to do this, look at this whole structure piece of it, as well as some of the other things that are in place. I think we have that. I think we go to Blueprint, we ask for a workshop looking specifically at the things that you asked for in the structure, and then we have a discussion amongst all 12 of us. That way we're all on the same page. We can leave that table knowing exactly where we're going. So that's the first part of it. So I can't support the motion based off of just that piece right there. Now, the second piece of it is a couple of things you mentioned, one of which being, let's say, the substantial amendment piece and it being a supermajority. Well, I kind of agree with that, being as though the voters voted in a way that everything that's on that slate was there because the vote, well, he sent it to the voters, and the voters then said that they approved it being there. Anything that we add to it, I think needs, in my opinion, needs to be a supermajority, because what we're doing there is we are actually adding something to the slate that our voters have not, in fact, said that they wanted there. So I think that the high realm or the high level of saying you need a supermajority absolutely needs to be there, because we're doing that in spite of what our voters have said they wanted to do. Now, the piece there about the money increasing the budget, if you want to play with that, you can play with that, but it's cost increase. If the cost of the projects increase because of cost of materials increase, but it's still at the level of which that we said that we were going to give our voters, then I kind of agree that a simple majority are based off of the fact of, okay, the cost is increased, so, revenues are increased, so the cost of the project, if we can allocate that to, that we give the voters exactly what they're asking us for, then I think we take that. And so I think that we can have a whole bunch of discussion here at our level at the county about what we would like to see changed, and then send it over to the city, and then they can have a whole bunch of discussion there, and they can send it back, or we can all sit at a table just like that and talk it over as a group, and actually start to make some progress on some of the things that you guys would like to see. As far as the structure of it is concerned, with the IMC being the reporting entity for the attorney as well as the director is concerned, I mean, I personally have no problem with it. I feel as though if I had a problem with the director or the attorney, that I can verbalize it within the meeting or within a private meeting with the IMC or the county administrator, and it would be handled the way that it needs to be handled, whether it be brought back to the board, because I believe that just as well as we could have a vote of non-confidence to be able to, no offense, but
use that example.
you know what I mean. We could do the same, and then direct the IMC to review whatever they had to review and bring back to us a recommendation on the recommendation that we just sent them. So it's a little bit more complicated. I think we can get real down in the weeds over here at the county and try to send some stuff over to send back, or we could really have this discussion at Blueprint where it belongs. And quite frankly, if you get a majority of the board that wants to have the discussion at Blueprint, and actually a majority of the board who wants to see the changes at Blueprint, then sending it to the city and the county just by virtue of sending it to us because it came from Blueprint, then becomes perfunctory because you've got a majority on both ends that have said they wanted to see the changes that we voted on. And not only that, you've had a majority of the board who has said they want to have a workshop to change things. And so, and that could be, and quite, I forget who brought it up. I think Commissioner O'Keefe brought it up, but I really think that could be a full 8-10 hour discussion. Even if we're talking about just structure in itself, in of itself, if we're talking about the structure of it in of itself, what does the structure look like that we don't like? What does a new structure need to look like? What is the review and history of the structure the structure that we've been through throughout the years? Because there was a point, Commissioner Pryor was there with me, where Blueprint was a whole separate entity that didn't report to anybody. And then we brought it in and then it reported to the IMC, correct, Mr. Administrator? I believe I could be a little fuzzy on that, but
It's
it was
always
different.
been its independent entity. We've had some minor structural
Right.
elements to it.
So I think if we're going to do that, I just believe the correct place to do it and the correct place to have the vote on a workshop to look at it would be actually at a Blueprint meeting. So I can't support the motion on the floor. Commissioner Kamea, and then Commissioner Pryor.
Thank you, Chairman. I respectfully disagree with multiple of your points. We're the county. The county has a 50% stake in Blueprint. The other 50% stake is the city. So my request isn't what works best for Blueprint. It's what works best for the county, because that's who we're elected to serve. And the IA agreement was originally made by the county and the city in their own separate meetings, basically negotiating and come up with an agreement that was put together. So I think if they could have done it 20, 30 years ago, I know that we can do it now. Additionally, taxpayers, they voted on projects, correct, and the conversation here isn't removing projects, but staff really designs the scope for these projects. And not all the time, clearly, does this board agree with the scope of those projects. So I would agree with you there if we were talking about removing projects, but I think we as a board should have more flexibility and say in regard to the project, especially that's going on in our districts, especially when costs are going up $40, $50 million. When it comes to structure, Blueprint staff, they report to two different governments. And that is a very inefficient method to operate. They have to get an approval from the city manager and the county administrator. What works for the city might not work for the county. The Airport Gateway, for example, was voted on in 2018. We're almost at 2024, and they're not even done with the design phase. That's cost taxpayers over $40 million alone. Because as more time goes over and over and over again, inflation happens, cost of goods go up, and then projects become more expensive. So what I'm looking at doing is having a conversation, one, to make sure that the current structure of Blueprint represents Leon County citizens in the best possible way. Two, that it's effective and streamlined so that we can do projects quicker and we're not handcuffing staff to what I think are ambiguous, large scopes that are driving costs up and costing taxpayers millions and millions and millions of dollars. So respectfully, Mr. Chair, I disagree. I do appreciate you voicing your opinion, but I want an agenda item, or we could even have a workshop to come back to the county and we discuss it. Whether it's and Commissioner O'Keefe, maybe you're right. Maybe we do need more time. Maybe we do need to sit here for 8 hours. And we're talking about $1 billion entity and government organization, essentially is what it is with Blueprint. We deserve to have a conversation for 8 or 9 hours. It's $1 billion entity. So, there's some changes in there that make me feel, there's some current layout of the structure in there that make me feel uncomfortable, especially with how things transpired in the last meeting. My motion's on the table to have an agenda item. I'm willing to amend it if there's a workshop, if we think it's a workshop. if that's what we need. But I think the conversation should start in the county. We are the county. What benefits Blueprint doesn't benefit the county. What benefits the city doesn't benefit the county. I think we should drive the ship here. I think we should propose changes. I think we should send it to the city. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very quick. I was just going to offer something as I was listening to the board debate that may be just helpful. So and it's just technical, notwithstanding, what anyone has said so far. Because of the nature of the conversation, everybody gets that this is really broad. It may be helpful. This may be one of those things where the board has to take a couple bites out of it and that you narrow the scope as you kind of go. So we could bring back, and we've done this, and we've actually got it prepared. Over the years, as the boards have changed over time, we've brought what I'll call an omnibus item to the IA, which said, here's everything involved with how we've structured Blueprint. And just to put it all out on the table and that sort of thing. Again, once you have all that information, the board may decide, if we bring back an initial item to you, you may decide you want to further narrow the scope down as you go and pick sort of certain things that you want to hone in on. And then you could give us additional direction on that. Again, if that's the direction the board wants to go, and I just offer that because there was some discussion of time, that's already written, and that's, again, it's about a 50-page item that's already done about, what the current structure is, why it is, how it's very, very intentional, but why things were done. So it goes to certain things where there are misunderstandings that are out there that aren't good or bad or other, just the longevity of projects, how long they take, how we do budgeting, how specific that is, that a lot of that stuff can be cleared up and the board can make determinations on things they like and things they don't like and then give us direction. And again, so it could be one of those things where if the board decided to do that we bring you back an item and you sort of narrow the scope as you go, and we could certainly do that. But certainly that's up to the board, and I just wanted to offer that.
Can you tell me, Madam Attorney, Mr. Administrator, what's the process here to change anything when it comes to Blueprint? How does it work?
Ultimately, it's an interlocal agreement between the city and the county.
Right. So it will have to be reviewed by both and agreed on by both?
If you're modifying interlocal agreements, yes. It is not a Blueprint vote. It is a city vote and separately a county vote. Those are the two parties to the interlocal agreements.
In a simple majority?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Commissioner Proctor, Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, one of the things which democracy affords is that it has secession. And we have different voices, different people. It occurs to me, this discussion, that Commissioner Maddox and myself have 40 years of experience on this board combined. The rest of the board has about 12, 13 years combined. So there's a substantive and entrenched logic and thought, maybe that we have, having gone the distance over the years. But one of the great things about democracy is that new voices come. And this gives us a chance to hear, to listen, voices that didn't start when we did, Mr. Chairman. And maybe we have the opportunity and the challenge to listen to new voices. That's not to say that the traditional way is not correct, but certainly not to say that it's the only way that business can be conducted. I'm open to hearing all of our younger commissioners in their service. Their earnestness is impressive. I said early tonight that not all communities have the same level of civic literacy. I want to be a little more personal. At this dais, not all civic literacy is the same. Certainly, our literacy levels with you, Chairman Maddox, we don't have your level of literacy when it comes to civics. But in the voices with which we represent in our infantile stride to be heard, to represent and how we see the constraints, the designs, the matrices of processes that exist. Maybe we can do things different if we're willing to hold that discussion. That's why I'm willing to do that. My concerns with the Blueprint Board, no one ever asked, but since it's coming up a little bit, it concerns me that the ICMA has a lawyer at the table, but we as the Blueprint body, we have no lawyer that represent us. We don't have a lawyer, we don't have an attorney. So our city manager and our county administrator rule and super rule the staff and the decisioning, the processing, everything. And the attorney is in the midst of that configuration. I don't know if that's the best, most positive route, the best way. It just simply is that sometimes I have felt, and I don't know how new commissioners feel, that we're on the outside looking in. That was a song titled by Little Anthony and Imperials in 1965, I think. So we're on the outside looking in because we're not vested voices. But I do recognize, Mr. Chair, that the Blueprint Board is the most is the closest thing that this community has to functional consolidation than anything. And the city and county commissions, as that IE Blueprint Board, that is a time when we are functioning consolidated. County, city, all that money, blah, blah. I haven't weighted, does it get an A+, B-? I mean, I don't know. Because we've never put the process out for the process itself to be judged, for the process to be placed on the scales and weighed in the balances. And if I don't want to hear like I know it all, but I think Commissioner Caban is asking that could we weigh, in his newness, in his way of speaking, can we weigh the process and re-examine it? And maybe democracy becomes dysfunctional when it no longer takes a look at itself. It becomes irrelevant when it no longer fathoms or hears the people's voices. And I think these new commissioners represent people's voices spoken in the voice of hip hop, maybe, but speaking to the vibrancy, the continued growth of a new generation. I think we should hear the new generational voices at this table. Maybe not the most civic literate among those at the desk, but I'm willing to sit back and hear and treat everybody's voice. And I think that it's not asking too much of democracy to self-examine and to re-examine our methods of how we're doing things and taking a long way around. I think this is what I'm hearing Commissioner Caban say at the bottom, at the core of it. And I certainly don't want to inflame anyone personally or to inflame the professional pedigree of any of our employees who all give to the good of the order. But can we look at the order? And sometimes I'm confused, and I'm a little ashamed to say, and you have to be a real slow learner to be here for 27 years and sometimes don't understand. So I don't understand some things, and it would advance my awareness to have that examination of the only governance in the community, which is really functional consolidation. And when you're consolidated like that, you should step back and examine. That's how I feel. That's why I'm supporting it, Mr. Chairman, and I'm asking you to support it as well.
Commissioner Brown, I don't disagree I don't disagree with every now and then we need to kick the tires and make sure that we're in the right vehicle. I get that. Although I do think, as I stated before, there are some things there that are in place that need to be in place that have protected us for a long time. But to challenge those things, if you challenge when they stand up, they're still good. I have no problem with that. I think where I am is where we're going about it. You said yourself, this is the first attempt we have at structural consolidation of city county government, right? So let's say we have this agenda item workshop, we do all the work, we put together all the things that we think, we send it over to the city, and they disagree. And then they send it back and say, well, we don't like this, we don't like that, we want to change this, we want to change that. And then we send it back again, and they go and send it back to us, and we send it back again. And it goes back and forth 3 or 4 times. Could take months at a time to do that, right? So my thought is, even if you don't go to a blueprint meeting, because you have said, Madam Attorney, that it would take it would have to come from city and county, not blueprint. Even if we had a joint workshop of city and county where we're both workshopping the item, where the votes that were taken there would then be sent back to our boards to actually ratify, just like we do in a workshop here, or we do in a board retreat, then to me that just seems better than us sitting over here having full discussion, county attorney putting in all that work, we send it over, then they gonna send it back, and we send it over again, and they send it back, instead of us all sitting right here at the table, having a discussion about it, having 1 vote or 2 votes, just like we do on comp plan. City has a vote, county has a vote, and then we go back to our respective commissions and we ratify those votes. Because who's to say that all the changes that we may propose to make, any of the city commissioners even agree with? So what, are we going to make the changes here, and then we're going to go over there and lobby on behalf of our government to the city that we actually want those changes to happen, and then hope that they make those changes and they send it back over here? No. To me, it's just a process thing. Now, once we actually go through with the process and do all those things, it's going to take some convincing to get me from the place that I am, but I am willing to listen to be convinced that what we have has not and does not work, or it should be modified. It's just in what form are we going to do it? I think it's, to me, I think it's time wasted for us to have a full discussion about this, send it across the street, hoping that they actually agree with what we say, and what if they don't? When we can all have the discussion right here at a table or a workshop where we simply are just ratifying the things that we agreed on as a group together. So in essence, what I'm saying is, since blueprint is not the governing structure to do this thing with, that we would actually invite the city to a city-county workshop on blueprint and structure and its policies, and that everything that comes out of that be ratified by the city and by the county, and then at that point, we can go ahead and start actually changing some of these agreements instead of sending something over and hoping that we can change something. So it's really a process thing to me. I mean, I don't agree with the things that we're trying to change, but I'm convinced. I'm convinced by you, Commissioner Proctor, when you said every now and then the thoughts that we have, even though we've been here for a while, should be and need to be challenged to make sure that they still work. So I'm okay with that. Now I'm at a point of I can't agree with the way we're going about it. Yes, we are 50-50, but that other 50 means a lot. So we can get our 50 straight and we can send it over to them. What if that 50 don't agree? Then we're right back at the table and nothing has changed. So I can't agree with the way, if we're going to send it over and try to have that joint workshop, I'm with that. Because if we send it over and they say, okay, we're willing to come to a joint workshop, that means that they have things that they want to see changed too. And something in that workshop is going to get changed. But if we send it over and they're not even willing to come over and have a workshop, then it's no point in us having a discussion. Commissioner Minor, then the vice chair, and then, I'm sorry, I'll come back to you because Commissioner Minor hadn't spoken yet. Commissioner Minor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, the things you're saying about having that discussion of blueprint, I think has a lot of merits. I think that's where we should have those discussions for the reasons you stated. You know, we're only one half of the decision making on this. We have to lobby the city in some way and hope that they pass it. But I understand why Commissioner Caban is bringing this up. I've got some frustrations with blueprint overall, and I think the concerns that he raises are valid ones. Here's what I think we might want to do. This springboards off of what the county administrator had said. Commissioner Caban, your points I think are good ones about the IMC, the structure, substantial amendment process, but I think they're still pretty broad with the overall scope of documents that the county attorney would have to review. And it's almost like we'd be asking her to review that large body of documentation and then make her own judgment on what she thinks we might want to hear, right? In other words, I think you're asking her office to project what they think might be issues onto, I'll stop until the chairman's available to hear me. It's all right. So I think by asking the county attorney to review this wide degree of documentation, you're asking her to probably put forth a lot of her own perspective and judgment on what she returned to us. So I think one thing that might work, that might address where we are at right now, is asking the county administrator to provide that omnibus agenda item to us. It could be an agenda item that we actually review and talk about here, and then decide where we go from that point. From that, after reading that omnibus agenda item, I think we could then narrow down our scope of what we might want to discuss, either here as a body, and then at that point we can decide whether or not we might want to, as a county commission, make some type of decision, or go to Blueprint and state our case there. But I think at this point, in my opinion, your concerns, I think, are well-founded. I share some of those concerns. But I think the scope of what we're asking the county attorney to do is just a little too broad right now.
Okay.
So what I would recommend, if it's agreeable to you, is if it were up to me, I'd have a motion where we actually have that omnibus agenda item come back, have us review it as a group, and then we decide whether or not there are points within that scope we might want to narrow to give the county attorney either more ability to go through that documentation, or we might have the information we need after reading that document to go forward on our own.
On point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, on point.
Thank you for the feedback, Commissioner Minor. So, guys, I'm part of the purpose of me bringing this up was I wanted to get feedback from this board. I'm very open to conversation. I'm very open to compromise. One thing I just want to say is that we have, a world-class attorney, and I do believe that she has the team and the capability to be able to, dive through this material, come back to us in 2 months, and make some legal recommendations, whether or not, do we even know if we are legally represented well as a county on Blueprint? Commissioner Proctor, you made a great point. So there's just some things that I do think that this is going to take a process. This is not going to be something we do in one meeting, okay? And guys, there's nothing wrong with us engaging in negotiations with with the city that take a couple months. Quite frankly, that's business. So I'm okay with us coming up with feedback. Mr. Chair, I appreciate your open-mindedness and I appreciate your honesty with this. I think you bring up a lot of valid concerns, and you've been here for a while, and I appreciate your leadership with this. But I think that there's a way, clearly there's 1, 2, 3, 4 members of this body that have frustrations with the current structure of Blueprint. So that is a majority of this board have now voiced frustrations with structure of Blueprint. So how do we get there where we're able to put our frustrations on the table and come up with proposed changes? That's where I'm getting at. I'm not married to my motion on the table, but I think there's a way where 4 of us have an issue with, where some fundamental issues with Blueprint. How do we put it on paper, and how do we formalize it so that we can properly present it to the city?
Thank you. I have the vice chair in queue, but I'm going to give the gavel over to the vice chair because I'm really stuck on this process thing, y'all. I sound like somebody that I know. I'm going to make a substitute motion that we send a letter over to the city to request a joint workshop, much like a comp plan meeting, where we discuss the structure and policies of Blueprint and propose changes to such. And if we get no response from the city, then I'm perfectly fine going down the road you're trying to go down. But I really, really don't want to have this conversation separated between city and county. I would like for us to be able to sit at the table and have that conversation together. So that's my substitute motion. Did you second the original motion?
No.
Okay. All right.
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
You're the chair now.
I wanted to comment on the original,
Yes, go ahead,
on
Chair.
the original motion, and I think I probably disagree with everybody. I don't see one being exclusive of the other one. We've got our own county attorney here. I don't have any opposition to Commissioner Caban's request that she look at the documents and give us some direction. And I think we might get that direction before our next blueprint meeting. I'm not sure. If we have another one this year, I can't remember. Okay. But we're the county body. I have a problem with bifurcating us, the county, them, the city, because we're on blueprint. I don't believe asking the county attorney for direction is exclusive of us as a blueprint board, having Commissioner Caban or any one of us raising the issue of looking at the structure of blueprint, if that's what we're concerned about. We get a motion and a second of the entire blueprint body, which is what all of us and the city commissioners. And then we look at it from that perspective as well. I don't want it to be a us and a them. And I guess I'm really concerned because I'm chair of Blueprint. and I really don't want us to become a divisive body. So, Mr. Chair, I think we can get what we want from our county attorney, but then raise this in Blueprint as a body. And we, sitting as the council for Blueprint, can address it in Blueprint and get a vote as a body, not city, county, but all of us, because we're not bifurcated when we sit on that body with our decision-making process. So I support the motion, but I'm totally against writing a letter to the city asking their opinion XYZ, because it's not a city opinion. It's a Blueprint decision, and we're all part of Blueprint. So I support the motion, but I don't think we as a body should exclude ourselves from Blueprint. Let Commissioner Caban raise that issue when we have our Blueprint meeting. Yes, Commissioner Caban.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Chairman, why don't we meet in the middle here and do both? So I'm okay with a joint workshop, but at the same time, let's have an agenda item, because we're bound by sunshine, so we can't discuss really what the county wants to do other than a publicized meeting. So let's have the joint workshop with the city, invite them to a workshop. Meanwhile, have the county attorney look through the documents. And then I would like to have an opportunity for this board to meet and discuss prior to the workshop. I think that's important. We are a collegial body, as one being the county. So if you're okay with that, I'll meet you in the middle. Let's do both. Let's do the workshop. Let's have the county attorney go through the documents, and let's invite them. But let's also have some set aside time for us to discuss it prior to the workshop.
Okay, on point, if I may, Mr. Chair. Okay, I still have a problem with that, Commissioner Caban, because we are bifurcating ourselves. I don't think we as a county should invite the city to a workshop. I believe in our Blueprint meeting, have a motion
Okay,
for a
that's fine.
workshop.
I get what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. So you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, we still have Madam Attorney go through the paperwork, and then in Blueprint, we discussed having a Blueprint workshop
Absolutely.
for proposed changes.
Absolutely.
But coincide with that, we're still going to have Madam Attorney, I guess you would say, would that be I don't know, what would be the right term then to direct you to go through the Blueprint, the IA agreement? Like, what would be the right term of that, Madam?
She's our attorney
Yep.
of this board, and she's just giving us direction as the county. Am I correct, Madam Attorney?
Right. I just need direction from the board about the scope of the review.
Okay.
Do you want me to just look at the interlocal agreements for structure? And understand, I won't be giving you recommendations about what I think works best. I will be merely reviewing all the documentation and laying out for you how they all interplay and how the structure currently works as kind of a baseline for you to look at and decide whether there are other things you may want to do or further review. If you want me to go back further and look at bond documents and things like that, I need to know that just so that I bring you what you're expecting to see.
Madam Attorney, your legal advice, do you think the current structure of Blueprint, currently that the county is represented legally and by staff? In Blueprint.
I can't weigh in
She
on
can't,
that.
she doesn't want to respond.
Okay, so.
That's not a legal question.
Okay, so then, from what I've heard from Commissioner O'Keefe, Commissioner Proctor, is that there's some issues along with how Blueprint staff reports up to, like, they don't report directly to the board. I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, but I want, clearly, Madam Attorney is looking for some direction from us. So,
On point. Okay,
Yeah.
Commissioner Caban,
Yeah.
let me say this. I think if we ask the county attorney to just, basically what she said, just look at the structure,
Yeah.
come back to us. Any questions I believe that we have on the status of Blueprint, the reporting, I guess the hierarchy, that needs to be raised in Blueprint, in my opinion.
Okay.
So let's raise it in Blueprint, and I apologize, Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So I appreciate the folks who agree that Blueprint needs, the board likely needs an attorney that directly reports to them. And I clearly do want to see reform at Blueprint. I'll say in my election campaign when I was knocking doors, local citizens do not actively follow local politics, but they all know Blueprint. And so this clearly is important to people. I think Commissioner Caban and I want the same thing, even when we tend to trip over each other's feet on how we get there. And so, I want to do this in a way that works. And I think that the Blueprint is, even though I lose on a lot of minority votes on it, it is one of the last major organizations that the city and the county continue to work together. The county isn't in the CRA anymore. And I would hate to see us risk taking the first step in breaking what cooperation we have. And I think that I would like to give personally the Blueprint board the opportunity to look at all this. And then based on how that goes, then the county can decide if we're happy or not happy and go there. But I would like to see us work through Blueprint first, which, yes, I said that, because I think that's our responsibility there as directors there. And so we might just have an agreement. We might have an agreement on what needs changing. And I think that is a much more orderly process to have Blueprint board agree, and then it can go to the attorneys and the governments and do that. And so now with the IMC, my question is for county administrator, who's half of the IMC. My question for county administrator, who's half of the IMC, when was the last time the IMC spoke and presented to the board at Blueprint?
When is the last time we
The IMC, yeah, usually it's staff, so I was just curious.
As you know, we have point people as staff, very much like the planning department is
Gotcha.
headed by both the city and county manager. We don't present to you comp plan amendments. That's planning staff. So again, we have a dedicated staff that does everything intentionally for that purpose, for the purpose of carrying out projects.
Excellent. So I believe we desperately need reform at Blueprint, but I want to do it in a way that I think will work and will progress. And at the end, I want a united city-county, process at the end. And so I've been convinced by some of Commissioner Cummings' comments, and I no longer think going right to inviting them to a thing to change. So I'm going to rescind my second of the substitute motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, absolutely.
All right. So when I first made my comments, the first thing I said was, I feel like we should handle this at Blueprint. The first thing I said. Now we're at a point talking about we're going to handle it at Blueprint. Then I get to a point at a workshop. The reason I got to a point of a workshop was because we wanted to move efficiently. The county attorney has said that it doesn't matter what happens at Blueprint. What matters is what happened at the city and the county government. And so in order for us to actually change anything, it has to be an affirmative vote on change of structure or anything else by the city and the county before anything changes. So that was the purpose of the workshop or the joint board meeting, because if you did it at that meeting, that's no different than having a Blueprint meeting. All 12 of us are sitting there, we're having a discussion, and anything that comes out of that meeting goes back to our boards to be ratified, instead of us having to go back to our boards to be rediscussed. Not only that, at a joint city-county meeting, you also have the county attorney, and you have the city and the county manager there, and you have the city manager and the city attorney there, because we're not there as Blueprint. We're there as two separate government entities that are being represented that are trying to hash out an interlocal agreement. All right. So if we have this discussion at a Blueprint meeting, guess who's not there? She's not there. Or if she is there, she doesn't have to be there because it's not a city-county meeting, it's a Blueprint meeting. So a joint meeting allows us to bring all of our folks in the room where we can have all of the points that we would like to have, and we can have a discussion, and we can ask our county attorney during that conversation a question, because she's there in fashion to advise us during a meeting. And the city can do the same thing with the city attorney, just like the comp plan. Now, what you will have is you'll have a presentation by probably some city folks, some county folks, maybe have some Blueprint folks there too, because they're involved. And then after that, we'll all have a vote. We'll vote. Well, actually, the county have a vote on some things. The city have a vote on some things. And then after that, when we finish everything up, instead of us coming back, it'll be sent back to our respective boards to be ratified. And then it's done. Then we change the interlocal agreement. So going back to Blueprint and having a discussion, we had to, okay, let's go there. We had a discussion at Blueprint with the Blueprint staff. The agenda item is created by Blueprint and IMC. And then after we vote there, nothing really happens, because really it has to go back to the city and county. So it's recommendations back to the city and county for things to change. So then those recommendations are sent back for us to look at, and then we make a vote, and then it's sent back to the city, because of that same Blueprint meeting is sent back to the city. Then they do the same thing, and then after all that, then we got to change. So it's just an easier way for us to get there. Now I get the fact that, again, I'm back to the point of, I don't mind kicking the tires and seeing what needs to be changed. It sounds like to me a majority of the conversation is around the idea of structure. Well, if we're just going to focus on structure, we can tell the attorney just to look at the structure and have that conversation during this joint workshop where she advises us, or not advises us, educates us on what the interlocal agreement says as far as structure. If there's other policies like the substantial amendment policy, she can tell us about what that is. If there's a policy about the increase or substantial increases in budget and scope, she can tell us about that, what we can change about that. We can have all the discussion together as one, make decisions, sit back, be ratified, and we're done with it.
I second, you made it absolutely clear. Second substitute motion.
Was that a motion, Mr. Chair?
Well, I made a motion, he took back the second, and he gave it back to me. So.
Mr. Chair.
Did y'all get that?
Well, I can't remake my substitute motion, right?
Wait a second.
I can't remake the substitute motion. So the main motion's on the floor.
He took his second back, so it died, so you can make the main motion.
No, the main motion's on the floor. The substitute goes away. The main motion's on the floor. I can't make that motion again, so if it comes from the floor. We're taking up the main motion unless there's a substitute.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
The last point I made was, when I said meet in the middle, was saying essentially the same thing that you just said, was let's invite the city to do a joint city-county workshop, coincide. Meanwhile, the county attorney looks through the IA agreement on structure. Madam Vice Chair, I know you don't like that, but what Mr. Chair is saying is that if we do it in Blueprint, she can't be there. So it's not a true, like, we're going to have to come back to us anyways. So what she's saying is the same thing. We're bringing the city and county together, but it's a joint workshop versus a Blueprint, versus it being in Blueprint, because she can be there. So I think we're saying the same thing, but we're trying to make it in a way where like she can be there, the city attorney can be there, et cetera, so we can hash out everything in one meeting. Is that, so I don't think we're trying to push division.
On point.
And I understand that, but I think going into it, it's divisive. And I don't want us to be divisive as a Blueprint board. If we invite the city to our joint meeting because we've got concerns, we want to change this and that, we're starting out being divisive. I think that if it comes from Blueprint and we have a joint workshop, we're not divisive. We're not city against county. And I think it's some people with the city that might have some of the same concerns. But we're not going into it saying there are some issues, city, we want you to look at, we're the county, come to our workshop. I don't know that it just bothers me. Now, we might vote to do it that way, but I would hope that we would be a more cohesive body. And tackling the issue like this starts out being divisive, in my opinion.
Sure. Commissioner Welch.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you have the gavel again, Mr. Chair?
I do.
Okay. I think we all are in the same boat. We are just like rowing in a circle because everybody's kind of on one side. I mean, like I think I agree with the chairman, who I continually say has a great way of putting things and understands the process well. I understand what you're saying, Madam Vice Chair, and I'm sensitive to that, but I think from a process standpoint, I think that we can have our county attorney do a analysis of the Blueprint organization, and then just from a process standpoint, if we really are trying to get to a point where we amend the intergovernmental agreement, then that, just like a comp plan meeting, is the best way to do that, where we can get around a table and I would assume by then we would have some kind of omnibus, large scale analysis of Blueprint, and we can go, okay, we're sitting around a table. I got a problem with the IMC. Madam County Attorney, what is the status of the IMC? And she can explain that to us, and the city attorney can go, this is my interpretation of the IMC status. And then we can go, well, I'd like to change that. And somebody can go, I want to make a motion to change that on the county side. And the county can vote on that. And then if the city goes, well, we don't like that, then it's dead. So that's how, from a process standpoint, I think that you get to where we're trying to go. So it's like a joint city-county workshop to look at the structure of Blueprint, simple as that. And then you make your changes. If county can agree on changes, the city may or may not agree on those changes, that issue's dead. But if they find something they can agree on, it has to go back to us individually to ratify anyway. So that's my understanding of the process, and I think that's probably the best way forward. So I would support that. Is that motion?
Would you make the motion? Because it failed because I lost a second.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to that. So I'll amend my motion to what we're discussing.
Gotcha.
So direct the county attorney to look at Blueprint structure, and then coincide, we invite the city to a joint city-county Blueprint workshop.
Right. So, but
Question, point of order. Does Commissioner Proctor agree to still second
Right.
with
He's
that
your second.
amendment?
Will you second that, Commissioner Proctor?
If we can get some sewer on the south side.
Let's put that in we'll put that in the agenda.
I can't get any pipes no matter which way. Though. It don't matter.
Point of clarification, though.
Yes.
Is the motion for the city and the county to have a joint workshop,
Yes.
not a joint Blueprint
No,
workshop?
a joint workshop.
Correct.
A joint
A joint
workshop,
workshop.
not a joint Blueprint
No,
workshop.
Commissioner Caban's
Okay.
motion.
A joint workshop.
Okay, a joint workshop.
Now,
Okay.
Now, Commissioner Caban, I think what I'm envisioning there is that the county attorney and the county administrator will come to that meeting with specific things that we ask for. So you ask for structure. If you also like a deep dive and review on that substantial amendment piece of it, I would ask for that
Yes.
now. As well as if you're thinking that the change, if you say a substantial increase in scope, If you want to change to that, I will ask for that now. So then the county attorney will have time to look at that stuff and bring it to that meeting to give us analysis at that meeting.
Thank you for that point of clarification. So that's early in the meeting when I was saying to the board, like, hey, if you have something you want to be in this motion, kind of throw it on the table now. But I want structure between IMC, the blueprint attorney, and substantial change amendment process. Now, I will include in my motion anything else if any other commissioner wants to include in it.
Is there any other ideas or changes that the commission would like the attorney to dig into?
Just a quick friendly amendment, if you don't mind, Mr.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman. The county administrator, correct, did say that omnibus agenda item has already been written and is available for us. I'd like to see if he could add that either as a status report or email
Yes.
it to us now and then perhaps make it available to the public as well.
Can it come back as a,
It probably would make sense to have it as an attachment to that item at least.
Yeah.
what about a status report so we can read it prior to?
If that's the board's direction.
What about a status report at our next meeting, a status report, since you already got it? A status report comes back at the next meeting of that omnibus to be ready, so we're ready for any questions we may have that we
Yes.
have during the deep dive.
And that would include Commissioner Caban's specifics, right?
Right.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
so all that stuff would be in the omnibus, but then we would actually discuss this stuff at the joint workshop.
And by virtue of the omnibus and the report from the county attorney, that will help us narrow down our focus on what we want to talk about.
Correct.
Going forward.
Anything else? Yes.
I'll go with
I'm
that.
sorry. Yes, ma'am.
May I? The omnibus thing might be done, but the review isn't done, so can I have until like December to finish that
Yes.
part if we're going to tie them together?
Of course. So just to talk through process, what we're going to do here is we're not going to discuss any of this stuff until any of the stuff you're going to bring back until we have the joint workshop. So really at this point, we still have to send something over to the city to get them agreed to the joint workshop and then have to schedule the date with the city. So it could be 2024 before we actually have the actual meeting per se, but at least this all puts us in the fashion to get ready for it prior to. So the omnibus will come back at the next meeting, a status report, and then we're already sent the letter, and then whenever we get that information back, or whether or not we're going to hear back from the city, and the county administrator can tell us that at the next meeting or even the December meeting, then we'll know where we stand as far as how we move forward. Because if they don't respond at all, then we got to look at something else. Okay, so does that make sense, Madam Attorney? Yes, Mr. Administrator.
Again, and just like you said, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we can have that, the broad item back to you quickly, that status report
Right.
item. Just setting expectations again, and as I think you all know, but just for clarity, it won't address the specificity of a lot of the things you talk about, but it paints the pictures broadly of
Right.
blueprint structure and all that kind of
That'll
stuff,
work.
just to give you more information to go into your joint workshop.
That'll work. And at that point, at the next meeting, if there's anything that we want to give, anything else we want to give the county attorney to dig into, we can do it based off of that document. But right now, we got structure and we got substantial amendment. There's nothing else unless there's something that comes from the commission. Commissioner Martin?
I just have one thing to say before we vote. If you're a member of the Blueprint staff, maybe you aren't here, but you're watching, you're thinking, what is going on? I just wanted to say to everybody, the planners, the folks that are working in finance, all this stuff, you are doing a great job. I don't know what we do without you. And so I just want to make sure that you all are very clear about that. I think everyone here on the county commission appreciates all the work that you all are doing. And it's really incredible, the legacy that you all are providing to this community. And I just want to point that out before we vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So as long as this has been, I will promise you, I will bet Commissioner Proctor's check on it, that this, in fact, will be the easiest conversation that we have coming to once we start this process.
And just for clarification, Mr. Chair, I just
Yes, ma'am.
want to make sure we invite city commissioners,
For sure.
not blueprint.
No.
This won't be dubbed as
No,
blueprint.
no,
Okay.
this is
Just
a
wanna-
joint city-county workshop, just like it would be a joint city-county comp plan process. It's the same exact thing.
I think Madam Vice Chair should write the letter inviting them. So that way, they know that we're coming from the best part of our
All
heart.
right. So we got a motion on the floor made by Commissioner Caban, seconded by Commissioner Proctor to invite the city to a workshop. And we're going to have the county attorney dig into the structure as well as the substantial amendment process. along with the fact of having a status report, omnibus come back to us at the next meeting for us to review and maybe make additional requests of the county attorney to dig into. Workshop being after the new year or upon the date that we're able to get agreed upon with the city. Everybody good on the motion?
Yes.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Anything else, Commissioner Caban?
Thank you for your leadership with that. I really do appreciate it.
Anytime. Anything else? All right. We are, I'm sorry, Commissioner O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did I not call on you yet?
No,
Oh, my bad. I didn't call on myself either. Go ahead.
no problem. I have nothing tonight. I reserve my time for the next meeting.
Oh, look at you. I reserve my time for next week, too. All right, we're adjourned.